All right, this is your chapter 9 review. Keep in mind you guys are not getting tested on 9-7, so I deleted this page. All the answers for all evens and odds are on Canvas with all the work. I'm just going to go over the odds because that's what you guys had for homework. But again, if you want to do the evens just to test yourself, the answers with the work is on Canvas. So let's go ahead and do the odds. All right, looking at this, for the odds, it says find the value of x, then tell whether the side lengths form a Pythagorean triple. Okay, so as long as it forms all whole numbers, it's my Pythagorean triple. So looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and first identify what my hypotenuse is. So x is my hypotenuse, which is going to be my c, and then I have a over here and b over here. So solving it, I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to have 6 squared plus 10 squared equals x squared. Solving it, 36 plus 100 equals x squared. Adding, I'm going to get 136 equals x squared. And then solving for x, you're square rooting. Please keep in mind, on your test, you will have to write the exact answer. So when it says exact, that means you have to put it in simplest radical form. So looking at this one, I'm going to have the square root of 17 and the square root of 8. 8, I'm going to then have 4 and 2. Keep in mind there's still square roots, and this is my perfect root, which is 2. So what do I have left? I have 2 times the square root of 17 times 2. So I'm going to write my answer over here. X is going to equal 2 times the square root of 34. Is this a Pythagorean triple? No. Okay, because the square root will give me a decimal, so this is not a Pythagorean triple. All right, going to number 3. Same thing. First thing I have to do is identify my hypotenuse. And looking at this one, my hypotenuse is 13. It's opposite of my right angle. So I'm going to have A and B over here, again following the rule for Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to have 7 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. Now I'm solving for x. 49 plus x squared equals 169. Subtract 49 from both sides. And then going to get x squared equals 120. And solve for x by square rooting. I'm going to get 10 over here and 12 over here. We could have used different numbers, that's fine. I'm going to get 5 and 2. And then I'm going to get 6 and 2. And this 6, I'm going to break down to 3 and 2. All right, so what do I have left? I have a pair right here. That's just going to give me 2 as a whole. So I'm going to have 2 times the square root of 5 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. So x equals 2 times the square root of 30. Is that a perfect number? No, that's going to give me a decimal, so this is not a Pythagorean triple. So no for that. All right, going to number 5. Looking at number 5, the question asks, verify that the segment lengths form a triangle. Is the triangle acute, right, or obtuse? So before I do that, before I figure out is this a triangle, I want to change my radicals. I'm going to change them to decimals to figure out which one's my largest side. So 10 is a whole number ready. I'm going to put 2 times the square root of 2 in my calculator. I'm going to get 2.8 for that. And then 6 radical 3 would give me 10.3. If I add my 2 smallest sides, does it give me something larger than my third? Yes, so it does form a triangle. And now I'm going to determine which one's my hypotenuse. Always check. Okay, when they're giving you square roots, the square root is not always going to be your hypotenuse. You have to check. So which one's my larger number? 2.8 is definitely not my larger number. Is 10 larger than 10.3? No. So this is my hypotenuse right here. So solving it, please pay attention to this. I got a lot of questions on this in class. I'm setting it up as my hypotenuse. Keep in mind you are squaring everything. I'm going to write my blank. I have 10 squared plus 2 times the radical 2 squared. I'm squaring it. So 6 squared is going to give me 36. And this should actually be a 3, not a 2. And then the square root of 3 is just 3, because the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, and 9 is a perfect root. So then I'm going to have 100 plus, same thing over here. 2 squared is going to give me 4, and the square root of 2 squared is just 2. Solving it, I'm going to get 108. I still have my 100 here, plus this is going to give me 8. So 108 is equal to 108. So what kind of triangle is this? If they're equal, it's a right. Okay, just a refresher, the rule is if your hypotenuse is greater than your 2 other segments and they're all squared, if your hypotenuse is greater, it's obtuse. If your hypotenuse is smaller, it's acute. Okay, so just remember that. All right, any questions on 9-1? Okay, let's go ahead and go to 9-2. It says find the value of x, write your answer in simplest form. So looking at this, I need to solve for x. Okay, a couple ways you can solve this. Because it is a right triangle, you can solve for your hypotenuse. However, this is considered a special right triangle because my 2 segments are the same. I have an isosceles triangle. So I have a 45, 45, 90. And labeling my sides, I have A, and A radical 2. Do I have my A? Yes, I do. So if I'm looking at this one, if A equals 6, I'm plugging it in for A. So I'm going to have x equals 6 times the square root of 2, and I'm done. Looking at number 9. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So labeling opposite of 30, which is over here. This is my A. Opposite of 60, which is down here. This is my A radical 3. And then opposite of 90 is my 2A. I'm trying to solve for x. Did they give me A? Yes, they did, which is right here. All I'm doing is plugging it in for A. So looking at it, I'm going to get x equals 2 times 8 times the square root of 3. Solving this, x is going to equal 16 radical 3. And I'm done. I don't have to simplify it. That's my answer. Okay, you have to remember your rules for special right triangles. You will have to figure them out using special right triangles, so please make sure you practice those. Any questions on 9-2? Okay. Looking at 9-3. These go back to our rules. You have to remember your rules for geometric means using altitudes or geometric means using legs. So again, evens are on Canvas as well as your odds, but I'm going to go ahead and solve for your odds because that's what you had for homework. So looking at this one, I am trying to find my altitude. So I'm going to use the rule with altitude. I have segment 1 over my altitude equals my altitude over segment 2. Doesn't matter which segment you're using first. So I'm just going to do 6 over, I don't know my altitude, equals my altitude over my second segment. I'm then going to cross multiply. I'm going to get x squared equals 6 times 4. Solving for x, I'm going to square root. And looking at it, can I simplify anything here? Yes, this is a perfect root. And you can't really do anything with 6. You're just going to have 3 and 2, so I'm going to leave it. So looking at this, x equals 2 times the square root of 6. And that's my answer. Yes, you could multiply 6 and 4 together, and you're going to get 24. And then you could, again, break it down to 6 and 4. So you're going to end up getting the same thing, or break it down using something else, finding the factors. All right, looking at number 13. Oh, you know what? We didn't identify the similar triangles. Let's go ahead and identify the similar triangles. So identifying my similar triangles, I'm going to have, if it helps, draw it out. I'm going to do my large triangle first. Triangle LKJ is similar to triangle KML or KMJ, which is similar to triangle LMK. Again, we could have these mixed up in a different order. You could have the letters written in a different order, as long as it's the same pattern between everything. All right, now looking at 13, solving for x. This one I'm not given my altitude. I'm given a leg and a sohal, the segment of the hypotenuse adjacent to the leg. And for this one, I'm using hypotenuse over leg equals leg over my sohal. Again, sohal means your segment of the hypotenuse. So here's my hypotenuse. I'm just taking a segment, so this one, adjacent to the leg that's given. So they gave me 20. 16 will be my sohal because it's right next to it. So plugging in what we have, I don't have my hypotenuse. I do have my leg, which is 20, equals my leg over my sohal, cross multiply. I'm going to get 16x equals 400. And then divide both sides by 16. X equals 25. And then finding my similar triangles, looking at my similar triangles, I'm going to have triangle UTS is similar to triangle TVS, which is similar to triangle UVT. All right, any questions so far on 11 and 13? You guys are going to have to remember this because this is not given to you. So please make sure you remember those rules. All right, now going to 15, find the geometric mean for these numbers, 36 and 48. All you're doing is square rooting them. The square root of 36 and the square root of 48. Yes, they are being multiplied. The square root of 36 is pretty easy. That's a perfect root. It's just going to give me 6. And then breaking this up, I'm going to get the square root of 4 and the square root of 12. 4 is perfect. And then I'm going to get the square root of 3 and the square root of 4. And again, 4 is a perfect root. So what do I have left? I have 6 times 2 times 2 times the square root of 3. Multiplying everything together, I'm going to get 24 times the square root of 3, which is my answer because that's the exact answer. Okay, questions on 9-3. You guys only had 3 questions here. Definitely try and do the other questions on your own for practice. All right, let's go ahead and go to 9-4. Looking at 9-4, doing the odds. Please be aware of the wording here. Some of you guys got a little confused. Am I solving for the angle? It says find the tangent of the acute angles in the right triangle. Write each answer as a fraction and as a decimal rounded to 4 decimal places. You will not have to round 4 decimal places if I'm not mistaken. Normally tenths or hundredths will be given on the test. So please be aware of that. You will not have to go all the way to 4. But it's just asking for the tangent of the angle. Okay, so looking at this, solving for the tangent of the angle, I'm going to go ahead and do J, angle J first. So if you forgot tangent, we have SOHCAHTOA. TOA is my tangent. That means I'm going to have opposite over adjacent. So using what I have tan J. Writing it as a fraction, opposite side is 11 over my adjacent side, which is 60. That's written as a fraction. Now writing it as a decimal, all you had to do was in your calculators, 11 over 60. Okay, if you plugged it in correctly, 11 over 60 would have given you 0.1833. And then looking at my angle L, so tan L, opposite, which is 60, over adjacent, which is 11. Written as a decimal, plug it into your calculator. 60 over 11, you're going to get 5.4 decimal places, 4545. Okay. All right, going ahead and going to number 19, doing the same thing for 19. Just writing it, again, tan is TOA. And that's opposite over adjacent. So going ahead, I'm going to go ahead and do angle A first. So I have tan A equals opposite over adjacent for radical 2. I cannot have a radical as my denominator. So I need to multiply by radical 2 to get rid of it. I'm going to end up getting 7 times the square root of 2 over 8, because it's 4 times 2. And then changing that to a decimal, tan angle A equals 1.2374. Again, you cannot have a radical as your denominator. And then going ahead and solving for angle B using tan. I'm going to have tan B equals opposite for radical 2 over my adjacent side. That one's in the correct form. And then changing it to a decimal, 0.8081. All right, looking at number 21, directions say, find the value of x, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So solving this is not a special right triangle, and it is a right triangle, so I can go ahead and use my trig ratios. So I'm going to go ahead and write it out. So, TOA. So I'm solving it according to angle 25. What are they giving me? They're giving me my opposite side and my adjacent side, so I'm going to go ahead and use tan. So I'm going to have tan 25 equals x over 20. Solving for x, I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 20. Plugging that into my calculator, I'm going to have 20 tan 25 equals x. If you plugged it in correctly, your x equals, rounding to the nearest tenth, 9.3 is my answer. Yes. How would I plug 17 into the calculator? Which one?
J.
So you're just doing for J 11 over 60. It's just asking for the ratio as a decimal. All right, questions on these three? All right, let's go ahead and go to 23. It says the angle below the bottom of the fence and the top of the tree is 75 degrees. The tree is 4 feet from the fence. How tall is the tree? Round your answer to the nearest foot. So again, they're giving me a right triangle. Looking at my diagram, I need to figure out the height. It is not a special triangle, a special right triangle, so I can't use that. So I'm going to go ahead and write my SOHCAHTOA. And according to the angle, what are they giving me? Here's my angle. They're giving me my opposite side, which is my x. and my adjacent side, which is my 4, so I'm going to use tan. So right now I'm going to have tan 75 equals x over 4, and I'm solving for x, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. I'm then going to have 4 tan 75 equals x. And solving, if you solved correctly, they said round to the nearest foot. So x equals 15 feet. All right, questions on 9.4. All right, let's go ahead and go to 9.5. So looking at 9.5, solving for the odds. They want me to find sine x, sine z, cosine x, cosine z, write each answer as a fraction, and as a decimal rounded to the fourth decimal place. So same thing as the previous questions, they just want me to find my ratios and change my ratios to fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and do my angle x first. I'm going to do it using the angle. So just writing my SOHCAHTOA. I'm using sine and cosine, so I'm going to use sine first. I'm looking at angle x. I'm going to have sine x. I'm going to go ahead and do that one first. And sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is my opposite, this is my hypotenuse, this is my adjacent side for angle x. So opposite is 7 over the square root of 149. Keep in mind, I cannot have a radical as my denominator, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the square root of 149, excuse me. So that's going to give me 7 times the square root of 149 over 149. And then I'm going to go ahead and change that to a decimal. Sine x equals, plugging that into my calculator, 0.5735. So this is my answer as my ratio. This is my answer as my fraction. So now I'm going to go ahead and do cosine x. So I'm still using angle x. I still have the same hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. So looking at cosine x, I'm going to have adjacent over hypotenuse, which is the square root of 149. Same thing, I cannot have that as my denominator. So my fraction is going to be 10 times the square root of 149 over 149. And writing that as a decimal, cosine x is going to be 0.8192. All right, going ahead and looking at angle z. Now angle z, I still have the same hypotenuse. But now this is my opposite side. This is now my adjacent side. So, solving for sine z. I'm going to have opposite, which is 10 over adjacent, square root 149. So same thing as before. I'm going to end up getting 10 times the square root of 149 over 149, and if you could kind of see it, sine z is the same as cosine x. So sine z is going to be 0.8192. And then going ahead and solving for cosine z. Cosine z is going to be the same as sine x, so I'm going to have 7 times radical 149 over 149, still following the same pattern. Cosine z as a decimal is going to be 0.5735. Any questions on this one? Again, you cannot have your radical as a denominator, so please do not make that mistake. All right, looking at 27, it says find the value of each variable using sine and cosine. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So I'm only using sine and cosine. I have so, I have ka. and I have TOA. So finding out what I have, I'm going to go ahead and solve using sine and cosine. So I'm going to do sine first. So according to 23, I have opposites, I have my adjacent, and I have my hypotenuse. So the first one, sine 23 equals t over 34. Solving for t, I'm going to multiply both sides by 34. So then I'm going to have 34 sine 23 equals t. Plugging that into my calculator, rounding to the nearest tenth, my answer should have been 13.3. All right, next, solving using cosine. I'm going to have cosine 23. Now I'm going to have my adjacent, which is s, over 34. Solving for my s, I'm going to multiply both sides by 34. If you solved correctly, you should have 34 cosine 23 equals s. And s rounded is going to be 13.3. I'm sorry, 31.3. All right, questions on 27. All right, let's go ahead and go to 29. Same thing. According to this angle, this is my hypotenuse, this is my adjacent side, this is my opposite side. I have so and ka. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for sine first. I'm going to have sine 70 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Solving for v, I'm going to multiply both sides by 10. I'm going to have 10 sine 70 equals v. Rounding to the nearest tenth, I'm going to get 9.4. And then solving using cosine 70 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Solving for my adjacent side, which is w, I'm multiplying 10 times cosine 70. If you solved correctly and rounded correctly, w equals 3.4. All right, questions on 27 and 29. All right, looking at the last question, write cosine 29 in terms of sine. I'm just going to do 30 and 31 really quick. Okay, keep in mind, sine and cosine, they're complementary angles. So the way you need to think about these is if they're giving you sine 72, your cosine is going to equal 90 minus 72. So your answer is cosine 18. All right, and then doing 31, the same thing. If they're giving you cosine 29, it's going to equal sine 90 minus 29. So if you subtract it correctly, sine equals sine 61. All right, any questions on 9.5? All right, let's go ahead and finish with 9.6. So looking at these, all you had to do was plug them into the calculator. How should I have plugged them into my calculator? It should have looked something like this. You're solving for your angle. The inverse of sine, 0.91. If you plug that in correctly, angle Q should have equaled, rounding to the nearest tenth, 65.5 degrees. Those are pretty easy. All right, and then 35, solve the right triangle. Round your answer to the nearest tenths place. I needed to solve for everything. This is a right triangle. I have to find my other side. So first, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for, let's call this side A. I can use the Pythagorean theorem for this. So I'm going to have a squared plus 10 squared equals 15 squared. This is a way you can do it. Keep in mind this is not a special right triangle. I'm going to have a squared plus 100 equals 225. Subtract 100 from both sides. A squared equals 125. Keep in mind they said round, so just plug it into your calculator. A equals, rounding to the nearest tenth, 11.2. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and solve for angle B. Right here. I'm using my SOHCAHTOA. Let me write it out. So using SOHCAHTOA, solving for B. Keep in mind I'm solving for the angle, and I'm going to use what they gave me, my 15 and my 10. So I'm going to use sine B equals opposite over hypotenuse, 10 over 15, and I'm solving for my angle. So I'm going to use the inverse of sine, or arc sine. 10 over 15, if I plugged it in correctly, angle B, rounding to the nearest tenths, equals 41.8 degrees. And then solving for my remaining angle. I don't have to use SOHCAHTOA. For this, I can just go ahead and solve angle A equals 90 minus 41.8, and angle A equals 48.2 degrees. All right, looking at the last question, 37, same thing for this one. I'm going to go ahead and call this side Z. I'm going to have Z squared plus 18 squared equals 25 squared. Z squared equals 320, Z squared plus 324 equals 625. Subtract 324. I'm going to get Z squared equals 301. Square root it. Rounding to the nearest tenth, I'm going to get 17.3. And that's for my side. Now I'm going to go ahead and solve for an angle. Looking at my angle, I'm going to go ahead and solve for X using SOHCAHTOA, same thing as I did before. I'm going to use sine X equals opposite over hypotenuse, solving for my angle using the inverse, sine over 18 over 25. Rounding to the nearest tenth, angle X equals 46.1 degrees. And then solving for my remaining angle, because it's a right triangle, I just have to subtract. So angle Z equals 90 minus 46.1. Angle Z is going to equal 43.9 degrees, and that's it. Please study. You guys have 2 extra reviews on Canvas if you need it.